uniquely extraordinary and moving experience that we're going to share tonight. We have with us tonight composer, scholar, teacher, Steve Rothstein, who educated at UCLA and on the faculty, and he is the music director of the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation. And in a few moments, we're going to bring Steve on with us and have a conversation and get to know him a little better. But in addition to all that, what I personally, and I imagine most of you will be most excited about, is this musical project that he is most acutely involved with. As I mentioned, he is a gifted and talented composer, and he has been commissioned to compose a symphony, which is titled at this point the Judaic Symphony. And we're going to find out more about the details, but I will tell you that in my conversations with Steve over the past number of weeks, I've been able to and had the privilege to hear some of the movements from this symphony that is based on some of the most beloved and traditional melodies specifically associated with the music of the high holidays. And on first hearing, I was moved to tears, hearing some of those melodies which really go very deep into our souls and our memories, and to hear it realized by a great composer, played by a symphony orchestra, I found myself weeping. I was just overcome. So I want to have as much time as we can possibly have this evening to have Steve along with us, to discuss, to teach, and most importantly, to hear the music of his Judaic Symphony. So Steve, please join us now.
Hello, Cantor Gurney. Very nice.
Hello. It is great to have you with us tonight, Steve. I've been looking forward to this for weeks now since we first met and
yes,
began talking about this evening. And please, if you will, give us just a sketch of your musical background, your experience. And as I'm sure you'll want to do, is to get to the music as quickly as possible. Before we get to the music and you describe your own background, please give us the origins and the idea behind this project in the first place, right? But first, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that very, very beautiful introduction. I'm very, very humbled and honored. And it's
my pleasure.
I also want to say hello to all the participants, attendees here tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I wish we could be in a room together in person, but under the circumstance, Zoom is not. It's pretty amazing that we have this technology at our disposal. So if I may, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our foundation and a little bit about myself. So the foundation I work for and I'm part of is called the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation, and we're relatively new. We were established in 2014 by our wonderful, inspired president and founder, Dr. Robert H. Freilich. And Dr. Freilich is, has a great love of all things Judaism and classical music, and had this vision to combine these two and create a foundation that basically commissioned new Judaic works, new compositions. And so the symphony that I'm going to share with you tonight is the inaugural commission. And I believe that Dr. Freilich is here with us tonight on this program. So a shout out to Dr. Freilich and his wife, Carol, and I hope you're here watching. So the foundation basically has, just real quickly, 3 mission points. It's to commission new Judaic music based in the tradition, produce annual concerts and events, and create educational opportunities for students and adults of all ages. And the program tonight, me talking about the symphony, goes into the 3rd category. It's part of our educational enrichment program. We have a lot of new and exciting upcoming concerts and programs and lectures throughout the rest of the year and into 2022. And if you are interested, a lot of our programming is free and online. And if you would like more information, please feel free to register with us at www.JudaicSacredMusicFoundation.org. We'd love to be in touch with you and let you know about everything coming up. So just real quickly, a little bit about myself. I am the composer and the artistic director of the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation. And I have a PhD in music composition from UCLA. And I've been teaching collegiate music theory composition for about 20 years. And just a little bit more about my background. I grew up here in Los Angeles. I grew up in the Valley. I was actually bar mitzvahed at Temple Aliyah a very, very long time ago.
That's the shtetl. You grew up in the shtetl of Los Angeles.
Yes, I did. And in my mid-20s, I attended the Brandeis Bardeen Collegiate Institute. I'm sure many people here tonight know of this magical place out in Simi Valley. And that summer of spending a summer living and immersing myself in Jewish art and culture and study just changed my life. And I said, I want to dedicate my life to Jewish music. And I said, the first thing I want to do is go to Israel for a year. I'd never been. And a short while later, I found myself in Israel at the WUJIS program, World Union of Jewish Students in Arad. And I think it's now changed. I think it's been absorbed into Young Judea, and I think it's in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. But it was an amazing year. Came back to LA and finished my graduate degree at UCLA in music. And then lucky for me, started working for the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation in 2014 and really received this dream commission, commission for any composer. And so I was just thrilled. And so what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is this Symphony No. 1, Judaica Days of Awe, which is all rooted in High Holy melodies. Let me tell you real quickly about the symphony before we dive in. The commission was to write a 4-movement symphony based on the melodies and motives of the High Holy Day services, and did a lot of research and study. And in all of that, talking with cantors and rabbis and musicians and scholars, we feel this symphony is very unique, that although there was a lot of really beautiful and exceptional High Holy Day classical music, we have never been able to find a symphony where all 4 movements are based in these High Holy Day melodies. And so we're very excited about the project and being able to share it. A little bit about each movement before we dive in. One of the things I'll talk about tonight is the difficulty of choosing what went into each movement. The first movement basically touches upon some of the key prayers and central themes of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The Baruch Hu Zochreinu, Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun. I start with the Hatzi Kaddish, and I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes, I'll talk about why I start with that. And Sharei Shemaim, open the gates of heaven and hear my prayer, and a melody for the Shema. And so that's basically what made it into the first movement. And the second movement revolves, it's kind of a quasi-rondo that revolves around Kianu Amecha. And that melody keeps coming back over and over again. And it's juxtaposed with a lot of different prayers, praising God. And I felt like I didn't have enough. So at the very end, as you'll hear, I quote a little bit of Melech al Kol Haaretz and Adon Olam and Yigdal. And you get a chance to hear that. Let me say this, movements 1 and 2 were already recorded with full orchestra in Europe. And then we're getting ready before COVID to record movement 3, which is the slow movement that is a double variation on Kol Nidre and the Grand Aleinu. And the fourth movement, you may be asking, where's Avinu Malkeinu? Well, I couldn't choose which melody. And so I decided after much writing and rewriting to juxtapose 3 different melodies for Avinu Malkeinu and interspersed with, shofar blasts and the horns and trumpets and some other melodies. So movements 3 and 4 are hopefully going to be recorded this fall. but we don't have them yet. This is we're living through the pandemic, so that will hopefully come up soon. And before we dive in even to the first movement, I want to share with you a little video of the recording session we had in Europe from 2017. And this is a little bit of the second movement. You'll hear a little bit of Keanu Amka, and you get to see a little bit of the recording session. So Cantor, if I may, let me go ahead and bring that up. And I'll just play a couple of minutes. So I hope you all enjoy this. We'll give everyone a chance to hear the style of the composition. Enjoy.
So you want to have it like they bounce the ball, like
Yeah, I didn't want it too choppy, so that's why, So yeah, feel free.
All right, so that gets everybody hopefully in the mood and introduces the sound world of the symphony. And let me just, if I may, let everyone in attendance tonight know that we will have time for to have Q&A. So if you have comments or questions, please write them below in the comment box or the chat box, and then we'll have two different places in the evening tonight where we'll get to hear your questions and comments. So please feel, we'd love to hear from you. So. Cantor Gurney, if I may, before we start talking about the prayers, I just want to share a couple of other things about the first movement before we dive into the first movement. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so let me tell everybody that one of the difficult things about composing this symphony was trying to decide what melodies went in and what didn't. There's easily enough material for multiple symphonies. The music is so rich, the tradition is so beautiful. At first, I had thought about doing each movement chronologically because I thought that would be a beautiful progression, the way the soul progresses up until the end of Yom Kippur. And I really wanted that to work, but it was challenging musically, and I had to leave that and take, do a different sketching. What I ended up doing is in the first movement, it's what's called a typical sonata allegro form, which means there's a presentation of ideas, melodies, a development section, and then a recapitulation of ideas, very much the way Mozart or Beethoven would structure a symphony in the first movement. The symphony begins with a short introduction of the Chatzi Kaddish. And it's a strange place to start a symphony, but to start, with something like that. But I always call the Kaddish, musical GPS. As soon as you hear this motive, you know what holiday you're in. And then the first melody I present is Sharei Shamayim, which is, of course, at the end of Yom Kippur in the Ne'ilah service. And it's and even though it's the end, I wanted to begin. I kept coming back, to this open the gates of heaven and hear my prayer. And I just knew after a while I wanted to start with that prayer. And then other important concepts like the Zochrenu and Rosh Hashanah Yekatevun. And so this first movement is sort of like trying to touch upon some of the central aspects of the holidays. And there's a lot more I wanted to put in there. But Cantor, let me turn it over to you, and you're going to talk about some of these melodies, and then I'm going to play excerpts.
Absolutely. Steve, I think your choice to begin with the Chatzi Kaddish was right on the money. And here's why. Because the Chatzi Kaddish, which of course is associated with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, traditionally we hear it introducing the Musaf service in a traditional synagogue. The whole Shacharit has been heard, Torah service, and then where all the serious stuff and all the materials so unique to those 2 days happens in the Musaf service. In the Reform liturgy, there is no Musaf, but it's also incorporated into the whole morning service. But that melody for the Chatzi Kaddish is first heard not on Rosh Hashanah, but on Slichot, the Saturday evening service before Rosh Hashanah. And in that Slichot liturgy, there are only, there's one unique melody, and that is for the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. That's first heard on Slichot, even before we get to Rosh Hashanah, as a little Vorspeis, right? And there's one other particular poem that happens on Slichot. But that is the beginning. That's the first traditional melody we hear even before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So that was a perfect place to start with that. After that, we have the Baruch Hu, right? If we could put that back up on it, Hannah, just for a second so we can all see. That's okay. So we're all looking at the same text, right? So, and then I love the idea also, Steve, of taking the end of Ne'ilah, where we begin by praying to God and asking, please keep the gates of mercy open for us, right? Petach lanu sha'ar, leave the gates open for us. It too is set to a very specific melody that we only hear in the Ne'ilah service. So too the Baruch Hu, which begins the evening services, and as you mentioned earlier, Stephen, really encapsulates the whole function of all these melodies. They tell us in a few notes what time it is, what day it is, whether it's morning or evening, what holiday it is. And as it also mentioned, these particular melodies on the high holidays have an even greater and deeper power than anything else we sing all year, for the most part because they only happen once a year, not every week. And the Zochrenu, folk melodies mostly, goes to the heart of the liturgy for Rosh Hashanah. We pray to God, a God who remembers us with mercy. And the heart of much of the liturgy, Borosha Shana Yekatev, may we be inscribed in the new year for life, right? And be sealed when we get to the Ne'ilah service, right? Even the Shema has a special melody on the high holidays. So that pretty sums up, I think, these particular pieces of liturgy that are all so important to the different stages of the liturgy.
Thank you so much. So is it a good time to do a little, tour of the symphony?
I think so, absolutely.
Okay. So what I have for everybody is a little video, and as the music plays, you'll have some prayer prompts on the screen, so you kind of know where we are. So one of the challenges, or one of the big challenges of taking these melodies, I've always heard them sung, a cappella and shul, and how does a composer take them and develop them and orchestrate them and expand the range and everything that a classical composition would do. It was a real challenge because I wanted to stay true to the melodies and to the heart of the prayer. So let me go ahead and play the first three melodies for you. The Hatzikadesh, Sha'arei Shemaim, and a little bit of the Baruch Hu, and then I'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll do the final three before we get to the second movement. And so here you go. Enjoy. Actually, let me just make sure. Yes, my sound is good. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. All right, and let me let everybody know that even though we don't have time to play the full first movement, all the music is on our website, and so you can listen to the whole thing if you would like. Let me skip a little bit ahead to the Baruch Hu, and one of the things that I did in the symphony is sometimes I didn't want the symphony to be a medley and just an arrangement of the tunes. So what does that mean? Sometimes I give the melodies very straightforward and, a very linear presentation of them. And sometimes I deconstruct them. So with the Baruch Hu, you're going to hear it a little bit different. A note here is different. The order is a little bit different. It changes key. It does some unexpected things, but hopefully it's still the Baruch Hu. So here's a little bit of that. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of how I, decided to play around with that very famous melody. So if I may, unless you have any comments, I'll go on to some of the other melodies, Cantor.
I would just say quickly that that particular melody that you just displayed so beautifully. Oh, if I could only have an orchestra and a French horn introducing the Baruch, that would be special. But that tune, which permeates the evening services of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, only the evening. I think I mentioned this to you at one of our talks, Steve, that little tune is based on a Latin hymn tune, probably dating back to around the 14th century, titled Iste Confessor. My late extraordinary professor and ethnomusicologist, Jewish ethnomusicologist, Eric Werner, made this discovery and discussed it in one of his books, that we borrow, our whole history is borrowing melodies from other cultures, transforming them, in fact, not only into pop songs, but into sacred songs. So what might have been a Latin hymn text or melody, or a folk song from Hungary, turns into a sacred melody over the centuries. And so that Iste Confessor was Iste Confessor. Here we hear it transformed into one of our most beloved and sacred melodies of the entire year.
It is fascinating. It's sort of a reminder that through music, we share more in common with each other than we might think. So
we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me tell you about just the final 3 movements, and then we'll take some Q&A. Again, if you have questions or comments, please, we'd love to hear from you. The Zochreinu is a melody that I give more straightforward. I give it twice, one soft and then one big. And I'm going to jump to the larger statement with the orchestra. So there are a lot of beautiful melodies. Here's the one I'm using. Let me just make sure I'm in the right place. All right, just back a little bit. All right, here we go. So here's just a statement with full orchestra, Zochreinu. That's a little bit of that. Now, my grandmother was from Russia, and I always felt like I have Russian blood in me. So if you hear a little influence of Rachmaninoff, that was my idea for sure.
Nothing better, Steve. Nothing better than that. I will tell you about that melody.
Yes.
So that melody, which most of the Jewish world is familiar with, was composed and is attributed to 2 brothers, both rabbis. Rabbi Israel and Samuel Goldfarb, who were the founders of the Jewish Theological Seminary in America. And they knew their music and their nusach. And they composed a full compendium of traditional melodies for every occasion, Shabbat, festivals, and the high holidays. That melody is in their volume published in about 1916 in New York City. Whether or not they actually composed it themselves or whether it was a folk melody already known, I'm not sure, but it's certainly attributed to them. So, yes, it sounds Russian for sure, but that is who we attribute the melody to, and everyone in America has been singing that melody for at least the last 100 years, for sure. Yeah.
Let me just go real quickly to the final 2 melodies, and this one coming up is Borosha Shana Yikatevun, and the melody I use is da tam da da pa bum 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 pa bum, and what the imagery I had, the idea is to start with it's very small, and you're going to hear the rhythm, not necessarily the melody, but this rhythmic pattern. and it builds and builds and builds, and then it leads into the melody. And the imagery I had composing it was just big march, but sort of like the sea. So you hear the melody start in the trumpets and then echoed in the horns and then the trombones, and it's kind of swirling in this ocean. And then we end up with shofar blasts and all the brass. So enjoy, here we go. And that leads, the shofar in my mind heralds the beginning of the development section, and I chose the Baruch to develop primarily in the development section. Mm-hmm. And if I may, just the last thing on this first movement is I wanted to put the Shema in this movement, but I wanted to have a special place, and I didn't want to use it as one of the themes in the exposition. And I decided to sneak it in the middle. I wanted, my concept symbolically was to put the Shema in the middle of the movement, almost to the measure. And so it's center, so God is center. And you will hear, if you're thinking the words along, on the words echad, on the word echad, all the orchestra drops out except for a single horn. And that's just like, a way that I could express some musical symbolism in the music itself. So let me just play that for you, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A. All right, and so just in the interest of time, I know we gotta move on to the second movement. But is there time for some Q&A? And I think Hannah is going to maybe read some questions for us.
I think we can. Just one thing before that, Steve, if I may, just a little commentary about first the Borosha Shana melody, which again is an Eastern European folk tune. Now, just so my worshipful of our temple members, they don't hear that on the high holidays. We do something different, but that tune has been really the tune we hear for Borosha Shana in traditional synagogues for all of the 20th century, for sure. And I just want to say, to hear how you transformed that simple little street tune into this powerful, really, ecstatic statement it's so extraordinary and deeply moving. The Shema, I just wanted to say that particular melody for Shema is only heard when we sing the Shema in the Torah service, when we've taken the Torah scrolls out of the ark and present them to the congregation. That's the only time we hear the Shema sung that way all year long, and even on the high holidays. That is not sung in the evening, only when we're holding the Torah scrolls forth. It's such a powerful statement. So just beautiful in both of those pieces.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Very, very helpful. Hannah, are there questions? Do we have maybe just a couple of minutes for anything you want to share or read to us?
There's a question about where everyone can hear the whole symphony. So if we could maybe leave the website in the chat for everyone.
Sure. Art Director of Development is here, and Jerry Krautman, I'm going to introduce him in just a few minutes. But Jerry, if you could type or copy paste the website, it is www.JudaicSacredMusicFoundation.org. And so I think Jerry just put it in there, and all the music plus our other commissions that our foundation has done. So,
yeah.
Any other?
Just a reminder, Jerry, and as even that the entire symphony has not been recorded yet by the orchestra, but we all hope it will be sometime this fall, and then you'll be able to really hear the entire work with the orchestra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for us?
It looks like all we have right now. There's comments of just how wonderful it is as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we will also have time for some questions, or if you have them at the very end. Why don't if I may, I would like to introduce our Director of Development of the Foundation, Jerry Krautman. And Jerry's going to tell us about something very exciting going on at our foundation coming up. So Jerry, you there?
I'm here.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. Welcome. I see by the participants that I have some friends on the list. It's nice to see you out there. I want to tell you about our next event. It's the High Holiday Festival of Music. And this year we're presenting Sephardic music by composer Renan Landa. And it's going to be on August 29th, which is in just about 10 days. And it's at 5 o'clock our time. And we'd love to have you be part of it. Just come to the website at JudaicSacredMusicFoundation.org, sign up, and we'll send you the link. And I look forward to seeing you there and hoping you enjoy it. Thank you.
Jerry, I will tell you that you're going to have a good amount of Wilshire Boulevard Temple people following, not only because it's a beautiful program and now they have an idea of what your mission is, but in the flyer you put up there on the far left is Jackie Ruffy, Cantor Jackie Ruffy, who grew up at Wilshire Boulevard Temple and started in our youth choir when she was about 11 years old with me, and she is so wonderful and so beloved. So Wilshire Boulevard Temple members, take a look at that and put it in your calendars.
Yeah, and thank you. I would just let everyone know that last week we were in the recording session studio filming and recording composer Ronan Landa's new work, and there are 3 short little vignettes, and it is absolutely a stunningly fascinating, beautiful work. And the program is free. Just register on our website. You'll get all the information. Would love to have you. So
wonderful.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and talk about the next movement, the second movement. And let me share again. Let me go back to our little slide here. So I decided for the second movement, I wanted it to be a little bit more of the fast movement. It's not particularly fast, but it's a little bit more upbeat. And I wanted to do basically a rondo type of movement. And the melody I chose is Kianu Amecha. And this melody keeps coming back over and over and over again. And hopefully Cantor Gurney will talk about the melody, and there are a lot of different melodies for it, but I'll explain which one I use. But I juxtapose in between the statements of Kianu Amecha these different prayers and texts praising God, and these little 3 quotes at the end of Melech al Kol Haaretz, Adon Olam, and Yigdal. And it's about 9-minute movement, and I want to play the whole thing in its entirety. So before I do that, let me turn it over to Cantor Gurney, and please teach us or talk to us about these melodies and inspire us with your words.
I'll try my best, Steve. The melody that you chose for the Kianu Amecha, again, is a European folk tune. Kianu Amecha v'yata Eloheinu, anu banecha v'yata avinu. Folk tune. And so much of our musical liturgy is either those pure and simple folk tunes or somehow based on them in some way. And that is a very popular tune, certainly in traditional synagogues, and again has been for most of the 20th century. As you mentioned, there are lots of other tunes for Kianu Amecha, but probably of all of them, at least in the traditional world, that is certainly the most popular. I'm blanking now on the Mechalkel Chaim tune you use, but I think it's Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed. Am I correct?
They're all so similar. I use
That's it.
Yeah.
So that is attributed to a composer by the name of Broslovsky, also early part of the 20th century. We do sing that melody to this day at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. The Vayomer Adonai, which is sung just following the Kol Nidre. I think that the melody you've used is the composition by Lewandowski.
I do. It's the Lewandowski, yeah.
Which is from the elegant German reform of the 19th century. And the Melech al Kol Haaretz folk tune, right? Melech al Kol Haaretz,
That's it,
I'll tell you, all those over these centuries who have contributed, who have composed folk tunes, compositions that make up the fabric of our high holiday music were geniuses, because it's a blending together in a way what you've done with your very symphony, Steve, to take these folk tunes, simple tunes, and make them into a symphonic experience, transforming them in a way, is in a way what all of those who have contributed to high holiday synagogue music over these centuries have done, not necessarily all of one mind, but that's how it's come to be. This beautiful fabric of simple folk tunes, a lullaby, a street song, and then the high-minded, thorough composition of Lewandowski in Berlin and Sulzer in Vienna, and others from Moscow and Paris. They all sit alongside each other, and they combine to create what we all worship and love and hold sacred, and that's our high holiday music. So you are in the line of all of that. And I do want to mention this one last thing. Forgive me for going on, because I mentioned this to you also, that it really struck me about your use of all these, what really are simple folk tunes for the most part, that this is in the long symphonic tradition of certainly Central and East European Europe, even of Germany and Austria, because Brahms did very much the same thing, using a lot of folk tunes in his compositions, even in his symphonies. The one that really comes to mind more than any other is Dvorak, who was so beloved of his country's folk songs, and wove them into many of his works. Again, I was so moved when I first heard these, and I'm moved again hearing them now. So that's just my little statement of
thank you.
What all this means. Yeah.
Thank you, Cantor. It's
You're welcome.
So perceptive what you say, because let me just say, before I play this second movement, that I found that compositionally, the simpler the tune, the more creative I was able to be with the orchestration and counterpoint. Right. And they really lend themselves to texture, harmonization, all the colors that the orchestra can do. You'd think a more sophisticated melody would do better, but it was exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
And I had, while I've been composing this piece, scores by Brahms, Dvorak, Mahler, Beethoven on my piano. So,
Right.
so let me go ahead and share this.
Please.
It's about 9 minutes, and I also will say, then we'll have some time for Q&A. If there's a little time at the end, although we haven't recorded yet the second and third movements, I have a version of me playing the piano of the Kol Nidre movement. And if we have time, I'll just play like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. You can get a sense of the mood of it if we have time. So here is the second movement, and I hope everyone enjoys. Here we go. All right, and that is the entire second movement. And, after that will come the calm, lyrical Kol Nidre and Grandolinu. So,
yeah, that was so moving, so powerful and glorious to hear all of that kind of coming together and also weaving back and forth, right? Back to the melodies, the restatement of all those fundamental themes of the high holidays, right? From joy and celebration of New Year to confession, to forgiveness, to praise of God, right? God, you are our God, right?
Yeah, that's very much was my focus on it. So, it's so that's a little bit of that. And I don't know, I know we're almost out of time, but usually this is a good place to have a couple more questions if people have them. And then, like I said, if we have time, I can give everyone a little preview of the piano version. If you feel, it's up to you, Cantor, but.
I think we have time. I think people are finding it just so engaging. One quick comment about that Adon Olam, and I'm glad you chose that melody too. That melody was composed by Eliezer Gorovich, who was the Chazan in St. Petersburg, 19th century. One of the truly most extraordinary and highest composers of synagogue music in history. And in particular, his high holiday music written for organ and choir and cantor is unsurpassed in Jewish music history. He wrote that Adon Olam, and he wrote it for the high holidays, not for Shabbat. For the last 100 years, many synagogues have sung it on Shabbat at the end of Adon Olam Hashem Alach. It did always strike me that it sounded a little bit subdued and mournful. And in fact, he wrote it, it's in his high holiday collection, not for Shabbat, which may give us a clue. Right?
I did not know that. That is fascinating. Yeah. In all my reading, I did not know that. I did not know that. Is absolutely fascinating. So, yeah. There were some melodies of Adon Olam specifically for the High Holy Days that I found in books, but I wanted to use this one just so it's a little bit more familiar. But now I guess I made a good decision with that.
You certainly did, because for some old timer, Steve, they'll say, "Oh, finally a melody I know."
Yeah, that was the idea. So
that's when you know you're in shul.
Exactly. So I don't know, Hannah, again, I turn it over to you. Are there any questions that you would like to ask?
We do have a few questions. I'm going to start with Stanley David's question, and he wanted to know why this choice of ensemble?
This is Rabbi Stanley Davids. I want
correct.
You to know, Steve, before you answer this question.
I apologize, Rabbi.
Now I'm very nervous. What was the question again?
Why this choice of ensemble?
You mean the specific orchestration or instrumentation?
I think that's what he means. Maybe.
So first Stanley asked why the choice of this ensemble. I assume he meant symphony, but then Ken Usen also asked, what made you choose the Bratislava Symphony?
Yeah, well, let me
answer the same question.
To cover everything, the reason we went to Bratislava was we were looking for an affordable orchestra to record. Unfortunately, to record in the States was quite expensive, as film composers know and composers know. That's why a lot of composers go to Europe, or especially Eastern Europe. It's much more affordable. Plus, you own the rights to the recording. I had a friend who has worked with the Bratislava Studio Orchestra, and he kind of just introduced me. I made the connection, listened to their recordings, and they were wonderful. They were outstanding and very, very affordable. So it was budget pushing it, but I want to go back and work with them because it was such a positive experience. And just in case the question was about also the size of the orchestra, I modeled it on a late Romantic size orchestra, meaning it's about the same size as a Tchaikovsky or Brahms orchestra. And I wanted it to be very playable, and you want, when you compose, things to have a little bit of a shelf life, for sure. And if you write too many instruments or too many extended instruments, it's very expensive to do that. And so I kept it very, very conservative with the choice of instruments. So that's a little bit about that.
How many pieces in the orchestra, Steve?
In this recording, there are 83.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be around 90, something like that.
Yeah.
So there are practical considerations always.
Absolutely, yes.
Because you want it to be performed.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Steve, we have a question here from Ruth Lynn Sobel. Cantor Gurney, will Wilshire Boulevard Temple do a concert, I'm assuming, of this piece when the symphony is finished? And let me tell you, I would love nothing more for that to happen. I think we are certainly one of the synagogues in America where that absolutely should take place. We've had the LA Phil in the sanctuary several times, and I know I speak for our whole community. We would love for that to happen in our sanctuary. And Ruth, when we begin that conversation, you're the first one I'm going to call. Right?
That would be a tremendous honor. I don't even have words to respond to that, except it's a beautiful statement that you would like it, even just enough on a little bit of hearing to want to think that way. So thank you. I'm very honored.
It would be our great honor to be able to do that. Yeah.
Any other questions that we should take, or maybe we go into some more music and conclude the program?
Hannah, it's not possible for anyone to ask a question in the gallery, right? We're limited to the chat room.
It is. If people raise their hand, we can allow them. We won't see them visually, but we can hear their voice.
Okay, that's okay. If we have just a couple, we could do that, and then we can conclude.
So if anyone okay, hold on, here we go. Okay, 1 second, here we go. All right, Miss Jones.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I want to
thank you. Okay, great. I just wanted to hear your piece on the piano. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I really want to hear you play. Cantor Gurney and Steve, when you do that concert, please just let everyone know. Get that together as soon as possible, because we need your music, and it's so beautiful. That's all I can say. And one question I do have. I'm a beginner, and I don't read music. I didn't go to Juilliard, but I play piano. So I'm going to contact you on the website because I like what you're doing, and I'm very, very touched by what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
Look, as soon as it's all finished, then we can begin, we can begin working on our dreams, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Someone else. We have anyone else, Hannah?
I don't see anyone else raising their hand right now.
That's fine. You know what I think, Steve? How much time will we need for the piece
I'll
of
play
the
like 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll just play a little snippet. So let me just say
that.
After the big ending of the second movement, the Kiano Amaka that you just heard, wanted to bring it down, and I juxtaposed Kol Nidre and the Grand Aleinu. Beethoven and a lot of his symphonies will do what's called double variation. So you have like an A theme and a B theme, and they just keep repeating in variation. And I had that model in mind for this movement. And what I did with the Kol Nidre is, rather than start with the opening Kol Nidre, I start in the middle on the da 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 dee da dum, the Shvi part, and then we work our way. So the piano version is on our website as well. The orchestration is much more elaborate, but at least you'll get a sense of the mood and kind of what I'm playing around with. So let me play for you just 2-3 minutes, and then we'll conclude. So here we go. All right, so that's just a little sneak peek, and certainly cannot wait to get into the recording studio. So,
two of the unforgettable melodies of obviously Kol Nidre, which is made up of a number of a number of little motifs that all work together. Most of which, Steve, find their way into the High Holiday musical liturgy in different places. Of course, the great Aleinu that you were quoting there, that opening motif, da 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 da. The Aleinu prayer it first appears in our liturgy in the High Holiday liturgy, not on weekday, not on Shabbat, and it introduces the section of the liturgy on Rosh Hashanah, the kingship of God, and that descending triad musically means God as King. And so wherever you hear that melody in other places in the liturgy, they're making a reference to God as ruler, or God as King. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, it's about 10 after, so this has just been so much fun. I could keep going, and it's such a pleasure and an honor to talk with you, Cantor Gurney, and I just cannot wait until we are able to gather live in person. But I'm so grateful for the technology, and I'm very grateful for all of those who have joined and listened in tonight. And it really means a great deal to myself and to our foundation. And just I'm more and more getting in the mood for the holidays.
Yes.
And although we didn't quite expect to be where we are in the world at this point, we're finding our way.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. Well, Steve, you should know, for me and on behalf of Wilshire Boulevard Temple, all of those who were so helpful in putting this together, to Hannah Gold and to Cantor Picot, who introduced us in the first place, and Rabbi Susan Nanus, who couldn't be with us tonight, and my wonderful assistant Jessica, and all of our members at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. They treasure and love our Jewish music, and I know now they're going to look forward. I'm going to be reminded, Cantor, when are we having that symphony? That's a good reminder. I'm going to wait for that.
Thank you,
Steve. It's a great pleasure for all of us.
I wish you all, Chag Sameach and a year of peace and health and safety, and cannot wait to gather, together to make music one way or another. So thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.